Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I am so excited to be once again participating in the Let's Dupe It challenge. This is a challenge that I came up with a couple months ago that takes place every second Wednesday of every month, and this month's theme is flowers. So this video is jam-packed with some floral inspiration that I'm duping from big box stores. Now, some of these DIYs may not look exactly like the decor piece in the store because of course I tailored it to fit my style in my home, and that is the wonderful thing about DIYing, but I think you're still gonna love it. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that little notification bell, and hit all so you're notified about all notifications. I upload videos every Wednesday and I know that there's lots of content you're going to want to see. So if you love room makeovers, room refreshers, DIY, home decor inspiration, decorate with me videos, then this is definitely the channel for you. So absolutely stick around. All right, let's get started with these flower-themed dupes. For this first dupe, we're going to start off super easy. I picked up one of these garden gate things from the Dollar Tree, and then I also got this wire basket. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all the tags off, and then by using some zip ties, I'm simply going to zip tie this basket to the first little rod at the top of this little garden gate. Now I just put one zip tie in every section, but if you want it to be more secure, you can absolutely put more than that. But honestly, I felt like it was secure enough. I thought that this was gonna hold, so even with just the 3, I felt like it was gonna be okay. Once I had my basket zip tied on, I took my wire cutters and I'm just going to cut off the bottom of this little floral piece. I really should have checked the tag to see what they call this thing. Now you can cut the rods off right at the top where that rod going across was, but I just wanted to, for now, cut a little bit lower because I didn't exactly know where I wanted it to go, but also I cut it at this height so that way the basket didn't swing backwards and that these rods are still holding it forwards, if that makes sense. Now you do have to put a little elbow grease and muscle into cutting these, but eventually they do come off. After that, I went ahead and cut the rest of the zip ties off. To give it more security, I flipped it over and I zip tied the green little rods from the actual floral thing onto the wire basket. I just zip tied it to the closest piece to it, and this just gave it an extra hold. After that, I took this whole thing outside and I gave it one coat of this Rust-Oleum satin white spray paint. And this is how it looks. Next, I took this pack of 3 mini flower pots, and these are the smaller ones, and all I'm going to do is cut some floral foam and stick some foam inside each pot. Now here I do have 4 pots, but I do end up using just 3, so 1 pack will be just enough. So after my floral pieces were all pushed down, I simply just took any flowers I had in my stash and I just started filling these little pots. I really wanted to use bright and colorful flowers, of course, that reminded me of spring since this is a spring DIY. Now the piece from Kirkland's that I'm duping this from is supposed to be all lavender, but I did not have enough to fill all 3 of the pots completely, so I added in some other flowers and I thought that these turned out really pretty. Now, I am absolutely no florist, so I'm going to speed this up because I can guarantee you this is not perfect. I just kind of stick things where I think they look good, but just use your eye and kind of eyeball it and just have fun with it. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I truly hope you love what you see, and hey, hang out with me for a while by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I've been overwhelmed with all the wonderful comments that I've been receiving on my last spring DIY video. You guys all loved that one, and I am so happy, and I can completely tell that everyone has some spring fever, and we are ready to jump right into warm weather, colorful flowers, and just brightness, basically. Let's get rid of the snow and bring in spring. So thank you so much for all of the wonderful comments. Please know that even though I might not respond to all of them, I am reading them, and I do appreciate everyone, and please keep them coming. So after all my pots were filled and looking like how I love, all there was to do was just to add the pots right into the basket. I love how this came out, and what, for about, I would say $3, not including the florals because I already had those. This was so easy to make. So here's the piece from Kirkland's, and you can see that theirs was black wrought iron, but I chose to spray paint mine white because I just thought that it was brighter and made it look more springy and summery. It can transition into summer too. Then here's mine. You tell me, what do you think?
You look at me like I'm crazy when I shut my feelings out. You look at me like I'm different.
So like I mentioned earlier, this video is taking place in the Let's Dupe It Open Challenge, and the challenge this month was to create all flower themed DIYs. So if you have a YouTube channel and if you're a crafter, please join us for next month Let's Dupe It Open Challenge. It's going to take place on March 9th. The theme there is bunnies, and I do have a co-host next month who is making it my own, and I absolutely love her. I'm going to talk more about her in next month's video, but if you'd like to participate, please message me on Instagram. My information is in the description box below. Also listed in the description box below is the playlist for this open challenge. So after watching my video, definitely head to the box to click on that playlist for even more floral themed DIYs. For this next DIY, I'm going to use this shadow box, I guess you would call it. I think it was originally a piggy bank. Now, I had already painted this white, and there was something glued on the front. So the first thing I had to do was just kind of scrape off all that hot glue. The reason why I left this on here was to show you how easy it is to repurpose something that you might have made and to use it for something else. So to get all the hot glue off, I just heated it up with my heat gun and then just scraped it off with that scraper. Now this frame was originally black, then like I said, I painted it white, and now I'm going to go in and paint the entire thing with my Ballet Slipper Waverly chalk paint, and I am going to get all the sides, the front, and the insides too. For the back of this frame, I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to fill that hole with some spackle, and once that dries, I'm going to sand it down so it's nice and smooth and ready for me to paint. Then I'm going to give this a kind of distressed coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. Now I'm kind of wishing I would not have painted this and just left it in like that wood tone, but I still think it came out cute, but I don't know, if I could do this again, I probably would have left it. After that's done, I'm going to go ahead and put the whole thing back together. without putting the backing on because we're going to stick some flowers in here. So I put it back together so I could see what I was working with basically. And for my flowers, I'm actually going to use some SOLA wood flowers. I use these in the fall and I just got them from my mom's and kind of forgot that I had them, and I absolutely loved these. So I picked out some kind of pastel colors and warmer colors, but still that would fit the theme of spring. But they were a little too big for the frame, like the back would not have it would not have fit. So what I had to do was kind of peel off some layers of each one of the bigger flowers and then cut off like the bud part, I guess, that would be in the middle. And basically I just added flowers until this entire glass frame was full. And once I put the flowers in, I did kind of press them down or smoosh them down into the glass so that way the backing would fit. Now these SOLA wood flowers, they are so easy to move around and manipulate because even though they are made out of wood, they're very soft. So that's why it was easy for me to just pull off some petals, to cut the pieces down a little bit and to smoosh them all together. So that's why I really love using these. If you want to pick yourself up a bag, I will have the link in my description box below. I'm telling you, these are so much fun, and hey, going into the spring, there is no better time to pick a bag or two of these up because the colors are gorgeous. So once I had the SOLA wood flowers positioned where I wanted, I took my hot glue and just kind of tacked the flowers to the sides of the frame. I did not want to tack it obviously to the glass because then you would see the hot glue, but I just kind of like glued them to each other or glued them to the frame just so they wouldn't move so much while they were in the shadow box. After that, I went ahead and hot glued the back on to my frame. And there were like little tabs there. So I did slip the frame underneath the little tabs, but then like I said, I did go in and secure it down with some hot glue. Finally, I cut off this word from, or saying from my Cricut. It says, "Hello Spring." If you don't have a Cricut, that's okay. You can use rub-on transfers, you can use stencils, you can use stickers from the Dollar Tree or stickers that you might have. You can handwrite this. I just really hate my handwriting, so I just wanted to use my Cricut. But it does say "Hello Spring," so I'm just weeding everything out, which means basically taking out the negative parts that you don't need in your word. And then I'm simply just going to rub this on the front of my shadow box. I absolutely loved how this came out. I kind of feel like it has a little shabby chic spin to this, and shabby chic is actually coming in. I'm seeing it really pop up in a lot of places, and this mauve color is as well. So here is the piece. It was actually from Joann Fabrics, $13.99. That's not bad, but when I saw this, I knew I could take this idea and apply it to my own taste and use colors that actually fit the decor in my home for spring. So what do you think?
Because you feel something real. Get so lost in my moments. Doesn't mean I don't need you. I fell in love with your color.
For the next DIY, I'm actually using this glass piece, and I did cover this with a piece of scrap paper for a previous DIY that I did not end up making, but I was showing you that that is the type of frame this is. It's one of those glass pieces with the writing on it. So now I'm going to take this beautiful scrapbook paper. I don't know where it came from. I had it in my stash from a really long time ago, but basically I'm just sizing it down to fit the inside of that frame, and I'm using my fingernail to kind of make just kind of a print of, or line where I need to cut, and then I'm going to use my paper cutter to cut it down. So basically this part was just kind of trial and error and just testing it. So you'll see me multiple times kind of putting it in the frame, making more creases, taking it back to my paper trimmer, but you basically just have to do this until you get the right size that you need. This is your friendly reminder that if you love what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube that you love what you see and you want to see more. So hit that like button. So once I got my piece all cut down, I actually realized I cut off a little too much. So what I ended up doing was, when I went to glue this down, I just added that little piece there. You can see me kind of just fitting it back in, and you could barely tell. So to adhere my paper to the frame, I'm just simply going to use my go-to, which is Mod Podge. I know a lot of people have switched to using glue sticks, and you absolutely can do that if you like that. I don't know why, I've just always been a Mod Podge girl, and I just still am. So I just put a nice thin coat of Mod Podge, put down my paper, put down that little piece, and then I'm just kind of slipping the top underneath the frame. There was like a little gap there, so it actually worked out perfectly. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to smooth it all out, and I even used my little tool from Cricut to make sure that there were no bubbles. And then I'm going to take my Mod Podge and I'm going to cover the top of the paper to protect it. Next, I'm going to take this little framed piece that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to pop out that little tile, and I'm going to give that and the black frame a coat of ivory chalk paint. Now, of course, if I would have thought to paint this, I at first was going to just leave this black, and then once I got that paper in, I realized I didn't really like the black around it, so I wanted to paint it ivory. Obviously, I would have done this first before putting the paper down because I did get a little bit of the paint on the paper. So if you're going to do this, definitely paint the frame first. But oh well, it's crafting and sometimes things just evolve. So I did go ahead and paint that bigger frame, and now I'm going to paint this smaller frame, and I am going to paint the entire thing. The sides, the front, the back, the insides, just all of it. Next, I'm going to take the tile and I'm going to give that kind of a messy coat of ballet slipper Waverly chalk paint. So if some of the white is showing through, that's okay. I was okay with that. But I also dipped it in water. So it watered it down a little bit and just kind of looked like watercolor, just a little bit. Then I dry brushed some of that ivory chalk paint over the top to mute the pink down just a smidge. And then I'm going to take these rub-on transfer sheets that I got from the Dollar Tree. One of them is, you could see the cactus and some just leaves and stuff. The other one is just a whole bunch of words. So I'm sorry the reflection of my light is not letting you see what this says, but you'll see in a minute. But I cut out the words cherish, and then this one says the journey. So altogether it's going to be cherish the journey. And then on that other sheet I cut off this little flower. So this was so easy to use. Now at this point nothing is glued down. I'm just placing it there just so I knew where to go ahead and rub it on. So now I just use my little scraper tool from Cricut and I'm just rubbing on my transfers, and these transferred on so easily. I love using these transfers from the Dollar Tree. After that, I took my Waverly Antique Wax and this little chunky brush, and I'm just dry brushing some of that wax over the tile, and then I am going to go around the two frames too, the big one and the small one. And I did this because there's kind of like a brown distressing in the scrapbook paper itself, so I did this to tie it all in. So I have to address this. In my one video, the last video I posted, someone commented that they are so sick of the distressing. Listen, I get it. That's just the style that's kind of in right now. It's my style. I love distressing, but no one says you have to distress it if you don't like it. So that's the great thing. I am just here to give you ideas and inspiration. You do not have to make them exactly how I do. I mean, look at this whole video. This is going to look completely different than the piece from Joann Fabrics, and the one before it did too. So this is just to give you an idea, but if you don't like distressing, don't do it. So as you just saw, I went ahead and hot glued the tile into the small frame and then glued the tile in the middle of the big frame. Then I realized I really didn't like the way that it was glued on, and you'll see in a minute. So I'm just heating up the hot glue, and then I'm going to take this little spatula tool from Cricut and I'm just going to pop it right back off. It did leave some paint and pull up the paper, but that's okay because I'm going to hot glue it back down over it. So this is how I actually wanted to hot glue it, so the tile was to the back of the frame, if that makes sense. But first I had to go through and I had to repaint this side because, like I said, some of the paint did pull off. So after that paint dried, I went ahead and hot glued the tile back in the frame, and this time I glued it so the tile was towards the back of the frame. I hope this makes sense. I hope that you can see the difference of how it was glued. And then I'm just going to go ahead and distress that, and then hot glue this small frame back to where it was originally. And that was it to this project. I love this. I love all the colors. This just screams spring to me. Sorry about my head. So here's the piece from Joann's. Like I said, it looks nothing like it, But this is just a little too farmhouse for me. There was no color to it, and I just need some color in my life. So I decided to use my own type of scrapbook paper, my own colors that would fit the decor in my home, and I love that so much better, because why would I make something that I would never display in my home? Because I don't sell my crafts. So I really wanted to make something that I would put up. So tell me, what do you think?
They kind of tell me what I'm thinking. I fell in love with the way we are and the way we lose it. There's something different about us and the reason why we stay.
For the last DIY, I'm going to take these 2 rectangular signs that I got from the Dollar Tree last summer, but they have these type of signs out, I feel like, all year round, so you should definitely be able to find some signs this size. But the first thing, of course, I'm going to do is remove the hangers, and then I'm going to flip both of these signs upside down, so that way the printed sign is facing up at me, and I'm going to attach these 2 signs together. To do this, I'm going to use some jumbo craft sticks, and basically I'm just going to hot glue the craft sticks going across both of the signs. Now, I purposely put the craft sticks over where the 2 holes are because I am going to fill those holes, but covering up the holes from the back makes it so the spackling can't go through the hole, if that makes sense. So it kind of holds the spackling in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some popsicle sticks, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to use my heat gun and my little scraper to heat up the tags and to get them off. Next, I'm going to take some sandpaper and just sand down where the glue residue is, so that way it is nice and smooth and ready to paint. But first, like I said, I am going to go in with my spackle and I'm going to fill the holes. Also, I'm going to run some spackle down where the 2 sides meet to kind of close that gap up too. Once that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and sand down all the spackle. Then I kind of noticed that this was kind of still a little floppy. So what I did was cut down little pieces of popsicle stick, and I'm going to put them in between the bigger sticks. That way it just gives it a stronger hold, and that really did help a lot more. Next, I turned my sign back around, and now I'm just wiping it down with a wipe. And now I'm going to give this a kind of distressed coat of ivory chalk paint. As you can tell, I'm running out, so I wanted to get every single bit I could. But I'm just kind of, just messily, I don't know if that's a word, but I'm just kind of messily painting this. So if some of that brown came through, I'm okay with that. After my board was dry, I'm going to take my level and I'm going to use this to make lines, like shiplap lines. And basically, I'm going to try to recreate what my table looks like there, the background of it. So I'm just taking a pencil and just drawing lines, and I'm just using the width of the level for the spacing in between, and I'm just lining it up and working my way up the board and all the way across. Then to blend my lines in, I'm just going to take my finger and just rub across the line, and this is going to give it that distressed look. And I did this on all 3 of my lines. If you hear noise in the background, that's my dog snoring. He's only 5 pounds and he sounds like he's like 100. Sorry. Okay, next, to distress it even more, I'm going to take that chunky brush and that Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just going to dry brush some of that all over my board. And I am paying attention to the edges and the corners to highlight those just a little bit more. Then I'm going to go through with my sandpaper and I'm going to sand it down, especially where I kind of got a little dark with the antique wax, just so it all blends in. And then to dull it down even more and to help it blend, I'm going to take that same brush that I used to paint this board originally, and I did not add any more paint to it. I'm just using whatever's on the brush, and I'm just going to just lightly paint over all of this just to dull it down just a little bit. Now, this took me some time to get this to look how I wanted, so I kind of just between the Waverly Antique Wax and the ivory paint and sanding, I just kind of used all three of those to get it basically to look how I wanted. Sorry, I cut off the other end of this board, but I took the bottom of, or the end of my distressing brush, and I dipped it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I just added like those little circles on each end inside of the little slats to make it look like nail holes. And I did do that on both sides. I just accidentally cut off the first side. And then I'm going to take a really small detail brush, dip it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and just go over each one of the lines just to highlight them just a little bit more. Then, as you saw, I'm going to use my finger to blend them in. So then I decided that that was still just a little bit too dark, so I went over it with a light hand and a brush of ivory chalk paint. Now again, this is why I said it kind of took me a minute to get the look I was going for, but between the ivory chalk paint, the Waverly Antique Wax, and sanding it, I finally achieved the look I liked. So as that's drying, I went to my Cricut and I found this scrapbook paper a couple weeks ago at Hobby Lobby, and I am in love with this paper. I just feel like this is going to be the inspiration for my spring decor this year. I just love like the teals, the pinks, the yellows, and then that little touch of dark color. I can't really tell. I don't think it's black. It's like a, I don't know, it's like a dark purple. I'm not sure. But I printed out or cut out 5-inch letters, and they spell out spring. Unfortunately, I forgot the font name. I am so sorry. I even looked at it so I could remember to say it, and I forgot it. But it's just a very basic font in Cricut, and you can use whatever font you love. So right now, I'm just going to go through, and I'm just going to take off all my letters. And then all that's left to do is to glue them to my board. So I started with the two middle letters first, which is R and I, and I lined them up in the middle where the two signs met. And then I used some Mod Podge, and I Mod Podged the R down first and worked my way out on either side. Now, even though I had these lined up, of course, in true Ashley fashion, it was not completely perfect or straight. So you might maybe want to measure, but you know me, I'm not a measurer. I just kind of eyeball it. But I guess, I mean, from far away you can't really tell. It's just something that I noticed, but I still love how this sign came out. Now, I do wish that my letters were a little bit more thick and not so thin. So if I were to do this again, I would have picked a font that was just thicker, and you'll see why in a minute when I show you what the original piece looks like, but I still really love how this came out. So once I had all of my letters glued down, I went ahead and put a nice coat of Mod Podge over all of my letters so that way they would stay down and that they became one with the board. So this is another piece that is not going to look exactly like the original piece from Kirkland's, but I took the concept and just applied it to a DIY that I wanted to make, that I knew that I would display in my home and that would be perfect for my color scheme for this spring. So here is the piece from Kirkland's. Like I said, I mean, I didn't even use their same word. It was love. And I went with spring because that's what I wanted. But I did use the same concept. So I used flower paper to achieve somewhat of the same look. And I still think that I did, even though it doesn't look exactly the same. But you tell me, what do you think?
We fly around like paper planes, they never know where we will fall. Nobody can see us, still they wanna tear us apart.
I am absolutely loving how all of these projects came out today. They just remind me so much of spring, and in Northeast Ohio, filled with snow. I am so ready for flowers, for sun, and for all the snow to go. You're gonna have to let me know down in the comments which one of these projects was your favorite. Like I said, these don't look exactly like the original decor pieces from the store, but I added my own spin to them, so it was created into something that I love and will actually enjoy displayed in my home. Please don't forget, after watching this video, to go down in the description box below and check out today's playlist taking part in the Let's Dupe It Open Challenge for even more spring dupe DIY inspiration. I hope that you got a lot of ideas on how you can dupe some store decor into your own kind of decor that you can display in your home. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that like button, and hey, share this video with your friends. Maybe somebody is looking for some ideas on what they could make coming into the spring season. Well, until I see you again, I'll craft with you soon.
Bye.